Gang, it's that special time of year. Black History Month is upon us once again. But celebrating our history shouldn't mean staying stuck in the past. I'll tell you what's on my mind next on Black Freethinkers. All right, gang, welcome back to Black Free Thinkers. You are unfortunately stuck with me this evening because I messed the scheduling all the way up. So the rest of the crew has the night off, and I'm gonna just bust out a quick one. But look, gang, I'm gonna tell you what's really on my mind, and it's kind of the intersection of a number of things. It's really just trying to wrap my head in your heads and communicate about how Black Christianity just hits differently. And it hits differently because Black Christians are different, and Black Christians are different, well, because they're Black. And a lot of what we've seen recently on the internet is certain attention being paid to certain Black Christians, particularly Black celebrity Christians. You've seen a lot with Steve Harvey. He has a huge platform and likes to go off on God in ways that are, quite frankly, demeaning to atheists and kind of insulting. But you have seen people kind of making content responding to some of what Steve Harvey has said recently. Denzel Washington was recently baptized and ordained, and that got some attention. And our main man over at Deconstructing Christianity is made a video talking about Katt Williams. And so I'm gonna show the Katt Williams little reaction thing he doing. We're gonna talk about that. But I want to tie it to another creator that's featured on this show, Darante LaMar. If you go over to Darante LaMar's channel, definitely should be subscribed to Darante. Definitely show him some love, like his videos, sub, all that good YouTube stuff. But definitely check out the video he did on endorsement Christianity, which is really where a lot of these celebrities and different people, they're not really concerned with what we traditionally call the Christian life or the Christian ways or so much even the scriptures or really even dedicating their life and having a relationship with Jesus in some meaningful way. It's not really about that. It's really just this sort of endorsement. They just endorse Christianity. They put on the Christian jersey and want to be counted amongst the believers. And there are some consequences to that, and I think we don't pay enough to those consequences often. One of the consequences that came up in the video Darante was talking about was like, I think that was talking about, oh Lord, now I'm forgetting. I want to say like Jamie Foxx or somebody like that. Somebody I really like actually as an entertainer. And I think he was basically saying that God gave him a stroke. Had a stroke and kind of bouncing back from the stroke. And the whole notion of this is something God gave me because I wasn't giving the glory to God. I was living my life and I wasn't making God the center of everything. And so now I realize, it's like I wasn't really counting my blessings. I was receiving the favor of the Lord, but I wasn't really giving it back to God for his glory. And so you're literally praising God and being thankful for a life-threatening medical emergency. And at what point do we just stop the tape and just say it's 2025 and it's really insane to have people be so caught up in this faith that they say things like this to us. But they say things they say things like this to us all the time. All the time. This is an everyday regular part of Christian thinking. And of course, nobody really jumps into it because it's just par for the course, is what's to be expected. But it's quite disturbing. All right, so look, let's go ahead and jump into this video without any further ado, so that we can keep things moving along tonight. All right, here we go. Shout out to Holy Ship. Good to see you in the chat. Appreciate you for being here. And thanks everybody that's spent a little time watching us live here.
You know God made water, not science. Water is the only thing in the universe. You know the recipe, and you can't make none. Say it one more time, Katt, for the people in the back. For anything else, if you want to make it, you just need the recipe. And as soon as you get it, you can make you some. Not this, though. God made this. And we all know the recipe. H to the 2 to the O. If you put an H and an O together by yourself, you just have a hole. And you can lead a hole to water, but she ain't gonna make none.
Got to throw a little casual misogyny in there. It's just rough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to love me some Katt Williams. I definitely consider Katt to be a good stand-up. I don't consider that to be good work from Katt Williams. It's just so ignorant. I don't even think it's funny. But I'm gonna let my main man respond here, and then I'm gonna tell you what's on my mind.
He's just a comedian, but I have literally had people who have recently come or made a comment towards me saying that, well, Katt Williams said in reference to the Bible versus science. And the fact that someone had the audacity to think that they were making some headway, or that they would make some headway because Katt Williams said, man cannot make water, but God made water.
Okay, that's the first thing to understand is okay, like it's one thing to just look, comedians are comedians and comedians tell jokes, and a lot of comedians are Christians, and a lot of times that Christianity or what I would like to call nominal Christianity, because I think that is easy for me as a former Christian who was serious about it and understands that there's some things that come with being serious about it that these people are not even thinking about. But is whatever. I'm not really here to judge that. My point is, like, we could all set aside the entertainment aspect of it, but please understand something, especially if you don't have a lot of Black believers in your life. They really do cite comedians and other celebrity endorsements of the faith the same way a lot of white Christians, for lack of a better way to put it, cite apologists. You know how they whip out the apologist Yu-Gi-Oh card, like, oh, well, this apologist has this argument and this apologist says this. It's almost like the same thing, but it'll really just be like some random celebrity. You're just like, I don't even care. But it's somehow celebrity plus faith equals theologian. And all of a sudden, those what I would be happy to laugh off as a joke. Oh, you know how you could tell God made water because you could have a recipe and you can't make it yourself. Like, okay, I just think that's a silly joke. But it does trouble me when I think critically about it, the way so many Black folk use celebrity endorsements like there's really a serious theologian behind what they're saying. It's kind of alarming.
And then there was this joke that I'll tell you that they then made. There's other statement towards it that I'll tell you in that a joke from a joke. God dang. So anyway, the first mistake is that you're listening to Katt Williams for your knowledge. Now, there are some comedians who make very valid points, and those points are substantiated, but this one is not. You see, to say that we do not know how to make water is actually a fallacy. We know how to make water. We can put H2O, together. Nuclear fission is not impossible. Controlling the energy output, we've just learned how to control that energy output. But as far as
also, there's tons of just biological and chemical processes that we can perform that result in water. Like there's lots of things we could do that produce water as a byproduct. Like, so I'm not even going to jump into all the biology, but yeah, like in addition to this being a thing we can do, with the right chemistry setup. I mean, there's just tons of things that produce water as a byproduct, and we can go that way about making water too.
Fission, it is very possible. So we can make water. And here's the thing: if we can make anything else, then at an atomic level, then we can certainly make water. Now, I know he's trying to, and what people didn't realize, he's saying that the recipe for like maybe a cake or a recipe for something else, and then comparing that to the atomic structure of the recipe of an atomic structure. So we can do nuclear fission. We've known for a very long time how to do nuclear fission. It's just we've just learned how to control the energy output from it, and that will change the world in the next 50 years. But we can do it. So he's wrong. You can make water. Now, there's a joke that Christians or people like to say where a man was saying that he can make the water, or he can make a man out of dust, and the guy was saying like, okay, we'll go ahead and make a man out of dust. And the man gathered up some dust, and then the guy said, don't use my dust. Right? So the joke sounds funny, and it seems like, oh, man can only do, and science is only figuring out exactly what God had already done, and notions of that. But you have to, if you think about it logically, the God in the other joke where he's trying to make man out of dust is saying that you have to be able to make man out of nothingness. But we know that there is no such thing as nothingness.
Also, it's just this is very much like automatic sort of expectations when you're talking to Black Christians. The idea that there's really nothing science can do or discover that is doing anything other than sort of retracing God's footsteps and figuring out what God did or how God set things up and just describing it. There's no appreciation for the fact that we've actually constructed models of how things work, how the world works, how things really are, and that those are natural models that require no supernatural and in a sense obviate the supernatural. In a sense, they render the supernatural redundant at best, right? Completely irrelevant in all, according to all evidential suggestion, not real, right? And clearly false. And this is something that I don't even think we articulate effectively with believers. Like the fact that they don't that they don't understand the model, that they have the whole thing wrong, that even what they think what they think of as them being scientific or thinking about science or addressing science, really they do so in a way that really just asserts their dogma, and then they turn around and just dismiss the science anyway. So I just want to point that out to people, because a lot of times you may catch yourself in a conversation with a believer and you're going back and forth about what the evidence suggests about a particular topic, only for them to really assert sort of their theological, thoughts in there. And you're like, whoa, how did we get here? It's because, to be honest, they've never really thought through what science actually is and what the scientific method means and what it really investigates. As I teach my students, what the constraints of science are. And that's because, quite frankly, they've been lied to their whole lives about this, because I'm getting a little bit more into this than I am planning to tonight, y'all. But in reality, I think, and this is not a popular opinion, but I think science has really displaced religion as the primary way to understand the world around us. And it has been so infinitely more productive that it has left religion in a desperate tailspin, trying to cling to relevance, and it primarily does so by trying to subsume science. Like, yeah, science may make the world go around and make us, make everything that we rely on in these modern lives possible, but really, it's just describing what God did. It's really just describing the world that God made, and we let people get away with that, quite frankly, because they act so ugly, and they're really, their brains are so far gone due to the indoctrination that there's almost no way for you to correct this misunderstanding without them taking it incredibly personally, and a lot of people are just not really built for that type of confrontation. But it really is sad, and it'll tie into where I'm going. But I want to let him get through some more of what he's saying.
So if there is no such thing as nothingness, then God made man out of something, because there was no nothingness. So even this God had to have some type of material that was around. Now, hermetically speaking, if you apply the hermetic thought process to this God, then everything that this God would have made could have only come from itself. If this God is God, then everything is of itself. And as far as the Christian belief goes, if anything has anything of God in it, that is the consciousness of God, the being of God, then that thing would know that it is God. But of course, the plant, the tree, this pen does not know that it is God. It is merely a pen. So therefore, the Christian ideas of this God creating everything of itself cannot be rendered as correct. Now, if this God did not create everything from of itself, then what substance was there for this God to create? So Christians would then say, well, God created on the word, the word, the word. Well, here's the thing. Words are a frequency, but even frequencies have matter. There has to be matter to be present for a frequency to even exist. So even frequencies exist at an atomic level. So there still has to be some form of matter.
Yeah, like frequency is just like resonances. It's an attribute of something that is affecting the material world. The frequency isn't just nothing. It's the frequency of something. It's like hertz cycles per second. That's the frequency of sound. We might measure light in frequency. We measure, again, we measure physical processes. And I have a hard time having a conversation with people and not just feeling like religion is just dead, y'all. Like I speak for myself and not everybody on Skeptic Haven and certainly not even everybody else that you'll see hosting Black Freethinkers. But for me, y'all, it's over. It's just over, right? Because none of it makes sense. We shouldn't be able to build a model of how the universe works that's so effective, and it's just completely natural processes. And we now know for a fact that we weren't created. I don't know if y'all heard me, but we know for a fact we weren't created. It's not, the theory of evolution is not a guess. It's the most well-supported theory in the history of science. So now, what does it mean to even have a God if we're not talking about the creator? And then people want to go to, well, somehow God creates within. And you're just, at some point, you're just playing word games because you just don't want to give it up. So it just depends on ignorance. It just really depends on maintaining ignorance. Because if you take a honest assessment of what we've learned as a species about the world around us, there's just no way that this God is even possible. And there's so many things that if you were to grab somebody from Jesus' time, biblical times, whatever, they would lay some clear markers in the sand. For instance, they really did believe that sickness and death and disease came as a result of sin or demonic possession or what have you. They could not imagine a world where actually it was really just one theory that they kind of had, right, was dirty air. That in a sense, the dirty air was literally just microbes that we can't see, that it's viruses and bacteria and things like this. They had no knowledge of these things. So they thought it was spirits and demons. A lot of them, that would be severely undermining to their faith to learn that actually sin and demons and things like that don't explain why your grandmother got cancer. But if you really take Christianity and most religions at face value today, y'all, walk up into the congregation today, have a seat this Sunday, and listen to the message of the preacher in February of 2025. They're actually going to be talking to you about how sickness and disease and death and these things entered the world as a result of sin. They're still on that world view. And literally believe even that whether or not you get cured of a disease is a result of whether or not you were blessed by God. Even in the face of modern medicine, y'all. So we let these people we really do let people get away with being of two different worlds, living as though they live in two completely different epochs of human history. We let them go to church on Sunday and pretend that the actual death, y'all think sometimes y'all we let this stuff get so normalized to us. I get angry at the other non-believers in my life, y'all. I'm like, because I'm like, I feel like I should have to be being hyperbolic, and then y'all should be out here doubting me. But I feel like most of y'all actually know what I'm saying is actually the case. So like, what the heck is going on? But for real, y'all, like, they really do treat us that the deaths and the sickness we experience right now today in the world around us is actually the result of sin and demons and who's blessed and who's not and whatever. Then they would have definitely said there's no way to explain the formation of the stars and the moons and the planets and the blazes and the glavinoids without God. And we do that right now, and it's trivial. Matter of fact, I'm gonna keep it so real with y'all. We've so thoroughly established how these things happen that you're not even interested in learning about it. Right? Like real talk, like, yo, how do they make stars and planets? You're like, I don't know, Jay. There was a big bang, and then there was like the stardust and the cosmic evolution, and things started orbiting around other things, and things were colliding into things and breaking off into other stuff, and there's some black holes, and apparently they suck up all the things. I don't really know how it all works. Right? You don't even care. Because it hasn't been really novel, interesting science for fucking decades at this point. And the people who do study it for a living, like, they spend astronomical amounts of time in school to learn how to use astronomically expensive equipment to go out and look into the cosmos and add what feels like infinitesimally small details to the story. So most of us aren't even interested in learning the details of how it really happened, because those details got figured out a long time ago, and it's literally not even interesting, cutting edge information. We're just like, yeah, whatever, like star stuff, who cares? Right? Like, it's that's wild. Like, and we could say this about so many other things. They had the story of the Tower of Babel. We understand that languages evolve from other languages. The list goes on and on of the things that they needed supernatural narratives to explain that we don't anymore. And if you took an honest person from back then and told them that, we would find explanations for all these things, they would say, like, then my God isn't real. Right? Like, they would and they would feel comfortable. They'd be beating their chest. You ain't never gonna figure out where humans came from. You can't explain humans without God. If you could, yeah, I guess if you could explain where humans come from without a God, yeah, I guess that would. Yeah, well, I guess that would mean my God isn't real. But now you could provide proof of this all day long. And it just doesn't matter. So we're in some sort of really weird place right now, y'all.
In existence, even for the word to create. Because otherwise, Christians, you're saying that your God created out of nothingness. But nothingness does not exist.
And they know this. And I get sick of hearing this. I get so sick of hearing it's the atheists that think something came from nothing. Like, they literally believe some eternal white dude in the sky used words, made utterances, and those utterances manifest the universe out of those utterances. Like, I don't know what to say to a grown person that believes that. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be condescending. It's just the further and further I get from belief, the less and less sense it makes to me. And I do realize I have a very privileged education, but I think that's the result of education. That's what education does. Education means you're going to learn some crazy stuff, and there's going to be stuff that makes sense to you that doesn't make sense to other people because they do not have the specialized knowledge you have. And on the inverse of that, regular folk going to be participating in some things, and you just not going to get it. You're going to be like, I don't understand why people do this. This don't make, so I don't understand how a grown person can believe that all the universe and everything in it resulted from a magic being uttering things, literally a spell. And them same people will turn right around with a straight face and tell you they don't believe in magic. The same people. And I just look. I don't believe in magic either. One of us is being consistent, and again, the other one thinks God is a wizard.
Out of nothingness. But nothingness does not exist. Your God violates the very thing that you claim that people who are atheists or agnostic, that you claim that atheists and agnostics say that the universe was created out of nothingness, when we don't say that. In the previous video explains that in more detail. So, but in the Hermetics, it's different. In the Hermetics, it is that everything is from the all, but everything is not the all. The all is in all, but all are not the all. It's the divine paradox, meaning that the consciousness is not spread out with the essence of all that manifests from the mental thought of the all, the mental frequency of the all. So it's
what? Yeah. Sorry, believers. That's not making any sense. That's not making sense. And that's the thing too. Like divine paradox. Yeah. That just means it doesn't make sense. Yeah, the mysteries. Yeah, that's again another euphemism for it just doesn't make any sense. And I do think that is another real shift. So we think a lot, I think, about modernization, and I think a big part of modernization, I think we think about what I want to call like cosmopolitan living, in a sense of people from all over the world being able to be all over the world and live amongst other people from all over the world. Like, that's crazy. I think we think a lot about advances in medicine. I think, of course, we think a lot about advances in technology. Maybe we even think about advances in human rights and things like, really important things. But I think we overlook shifts in the intellectual technology. And I really think that that's what we're dealing with, where there's so many people that they've been left behind, not so much because they're mentally weak and so therefore they're people of faith, but they've erroneously been taught that faith is an indicator of mental strength, that faith is an intellectually superior thing, that faith is a good and valid way to be. And I think that if you go back again, before we knew enough to know, first of all, I think knowledge always trumped faith. Always. Somebody knew an antidote for poison, that was always going to be better than chanting or doing a spiritual dance. If you could predict, when it was going to rain or where, you were going to find water or whatever, that was always going to be better than praying and essentially relying on getting lucky. But as as knowledge has continued to produce in ways that literally we could not even imagine, and effectively faith has done nothing more today than it did 2,000 years ago, than it did 5,000 years before that, than it did 10,000 years before that. It's just become thoroughly immodern to be led by faith. And so many people don't learn about epistemology. They don't learn about how do we know what we know? Why do we think what we think? What is a good reason to believe something? What's not a good reason to believe something? It's like, that's really where we've left people behind. And you could tell because they take it personally. Like when I say, faith isn't a good reason to believe things, they take that as an attack on their religion. I'm not attacking your religion. I'm telling you that in anything, faith is a really poor reason to believe just about anything. Now, there are still times faith is very practical. You may not have perfect knowledge that your partner is consistent with your commitment and vows or whatever, but you're going to have a hard time having a healthy bond with them and healthy communication if you don't exercise some faith in them, at least, until you have reason to not do so. But again, as soon as you have reason to not do so, continuing to have faith is about the worst thing you could possibly do. I think a lot of times I need to have certain faith in my students. I'm not looking at their academic credentials for evidence of that faith. And, there may come a time where, as an academic advisor, I had to sit down with the student and discuss maybe this or that isn't the right path for you. But as the instructor, as an educator, believing in the ability of my students, I think, is always going to lead to better instruction than if you give up on your students, right? So there are just times in life where faith is either one, pretty much the only valid option we have. We have no choice but to have faith that the pilot of the airplane knows what the hell they're doing, because they're not going to let me, interview the pilots before I get on the plane. And there are times where faith is just preferable to whatever the alternative is. But that still doesn't mean that a person should not understand, what it means to have good epistemology, what it means to have good evidence, what it means to have sufficient reason to believe something. And if we taught people those things, they would understand the issues of their religion. And I think that's why we don't teach people that. I think it's not a coincidence at all that we live in a world, in a country especially, so dominated by religion. And then it just so happens that in our education system, we don't teach people the things that they would need to challenge the authority of these religions. Like, I think that's very deliberate. And I especially think, as secular people, that should piss us off and it should bother us. We should want these things in our schools. We should want critical thinking in our schools. We should want the tools and the means of deconstruction to be provided to children, because it is a public good to not fall prey to bullshit and to not influence others into doing same. All right, I'm gonna let him wrap up, and then I'm gonna tell y'all what I'm on.
Not the same as the Christians. It gives the understanding that everything has always existed and everything will always exist, but it all exists in the mind of the all. Whereas the Christian mindset is this God created everything.
Yeah, that's funny.
Either from itself, but everything would know that it's God, or out of nothingness. So who's the real thing? Who's the real people that's saying that this got created out of nothingness? And Katt Williams, we can make water. So you might need a new. Well, you know what? That joke is going to work with most of your people because most of your people are Christians and non-scientific, so it wouldn't matter. So y'all have a great day, and always remember you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.
And all right, telling you. So here's what this really had me thinking about, y'all. Black Christians celebrate ignorance. There's just no way around it. That a lot of what you see, especially in Black celebrities that endorse Christianity, first off, there is a lot of vitriol toward atheists. Like, if you really listen to them, there's a lot of, I don't understand these atheists. I can't think of a stupider thing to be. I can't think of a sillier MFer than an atheist. I mean, to think there's no God, like, if you really listen to them, there's a lot of, like, if you spoke that way about Black people, gay people, women, any other minority or marginalized group, or, you know, people that are considered disenfranchised or whatever, it would be instant problems. But for some reason, literally talking about atheists like they're second-class citizens is the people don't even bat an eyelash at it. And I think it's twofold. I think it's one, we do live in a society so dominated by Christianity and conservatives that, like, people just really don't even want to consider the humanity of atheists. Like, being godless is like kind of the, like, one of those, we always say, like, who's the last group that is still okay to hate or whatever? Godlessness. Like, you could talk all types of shit about godless people in public and it's fine. They're godless. Who cares? And then I think the other is internalization. I think largely because maybe so many atheists are white and, you know, have whatever class and privilege they have, that they still don't see themselves as a marginalized group. They don't see, for instance, the lack of representation we have in government as an indication of our marginalization. They don't see how much religion encroaches on our daily living as indication that they're a marginalized group. They don't see our lack of economic power and ability to even provide each other with mutual aid as indication that we're a marginalized group. Because think about it, you could be part of a church, and if you fall on hard times, you ain't gonna be on hard times for too long because you're part of the church. The church is going, somebody at the church is going to make sure you got somewhere to stay. They're going to make sure you got clothes. They're going, not all the time, but a lot of time, they're going to make sure you got food. Somebody at the church is going to help you find a job. Like, they're able to do mutual support. That's how it should be in any community. Any community should be able to do that. Everybody in life could fall upon hard times. Everybody should be situated in community that could help pick you up and get you through those hard times. Most atheists can't do that. You know, a lot of times you'll lose your job if people know you're an atheist, but somehow y'all still don't consider us a marginalized group. Sometimes, like, your dating prospects, like, there's a lot of people that they thought you was cute, they thought you had a nice little job, they thought you were a good date, you were a good company, you have good taste in establishments and entertainment and good values, and then they found out you was an atheist, and it was whoop, definitely can't bring you home. So, to me, people need to recognize atheists are marginalized, but atheists need to recognize that atheists are marginalized. But really, y'all, that's what I came to talk to y'all about real quick, and I'm gonna leave y'all with that to think about, is that Black people celebrate ignorance, particularly Black Christians. And in addition to being openly hostile towards atheism, is usually very openly hostile towards science. And it's difficult to be as accepting of somebody's cult thinking or indoctrination or brainwashing or whatever when it's based in ignorance. When people make bad decisions in the full light of the best information, we just can't stop grown people from making bad decisions. But when people are ignorant, like they just say stuff that just straight up reveals like you don't know what you're talking about. And then everybody cheers and gets down with that, and literally then that becomes the rallying cry. That's a problem on a whole nother level. And when I thought about it, it hit me kind of like a kind of three-headed monster of racism that I think is worth really thinking about, especially during Black History Month. First is within the church. Part of the reason Black people are so ignorant when it comes to religion is because religion has been always seen by other people as a means of controlling Black people, not a means of elevating Black people. So we wanted Black people to be faithful Christians because it would make them better slaves, or less likely to revolt, or only willing to fight for their civil rights through peaceful means, right? Only willing to, maybe they need revolution, but we could use Christianity to make sure they ain't too goddamn revolutionary. You understand what I'm saying to you? And so we've never been included really in the sort of educated high church type of thing. So in other words, we've always been kept out of real church power and real church leadership and real church authority and real education. Let's keep it real, y'all. A lot of these even Christian Bible colleges that started, y'all, they was racist as hell. Some of them were started to literally be segregated. Now again, why are we still talking about Christianity as a source of morality when it was Christians who wanted to start segregated schools and universities when the rest of the world had already figured out that segregation was bad? I don't know why y'all still having that conversation, because I don't even entertain that conversation anymore. I told you I don't talk to Christians about morality anymore. As soon as I tell you, your book says a woman who was raped should marry her rapist, and you continue to worship that God, yeah, we're done. We're done. We're not going to have any more conversations about morality. Trust you me. But really, let's really think about that. So, and go now, gang. Go now. Go to Biola. Go everywhere from what's high. What's considered high-minded? What's high church? Is it Notre Dame? Go to Notre Dame's website. Go to Wesleyan University's website. Go to whatever religious school you could think of. Go to their website. Go to Biola's website. What's that little hole in the wall Ken Hovind went to? Patriot University, Patriot Bible College, whatever. Go there. How many Black people do you see listed on their faculty webpage? I'll wait. How many Black folk do you see in the leadership of their administration? Damn, y'all, at least pre-Trump, a lot of them had one of us up in there. They had one of us up in there as the DEI officer, but they ain't even gonna have that no more. They couldn't wait to get rid of that goddamn DEI officer anyway. Half of them fired the damn DEI officer before Trump even got up in that piece, but the rest of them are showing up about to fire him now. For real, how many Black people you think they got in the leadership at them universities, y'all? Next to none. Why? Because y'all don't. The truth is, y'all don't even think about us. When Christians go to create their real space, and they gonna talk about theology, and they gonna build a community based on the principles of living like Christ and Jesus. Everything is funny. Ain't no Black people up in here. That's really interesting. Really interesting. Y'all finally get to create y'all own little Jesus kingdom for yourself, and there's no black people here. Very, very peculiar arrangement. So, of course, we have a lot of ignorance even of the faith because we're not educated about the faith. So black people have largely, and I'm not saying there are some churches that have, I went to a church, I played drums at a church when I went to Penn State that had a lot of educated black people in it. You could look out from the stage and it's all towards to master's degrees and PhDs and stuff like that. And it was a predominantly black church. But that's the exception that you get in a college town in the 21st century. And again, it's over here, right? It's not even integrated into the wider Christian community in a university town, in a college town. Even in a college town where everything's supposed to be integrated, everybody's supposed to be educated, it's supposed to be all of this. Nah, even the smart black folks, y'all gotta worship over there on your own. Okay. Then when you look at atheism, more racism. So then atheism, there's now even cliches that black people just don't do atheism. Somebody should have sent the memo over to Black Freethinkers before we started the show, but apparently black people don't do atheism. But if you take, if you take Black Freethinkers out of the equation in a bunch of our channels, and you just look at, by and large, the atheist content space, you're gonna walk away going, black people must not do atheism because I don't see no black people here. And so the whole growth of deconstruction, becoming a free thinker, leaving behind religion, all of that's something that's basically been something that's like for white folks. Like, oh, white folks do that. They deconstruct their religion, they become atheists. Black people don't do that. So because we're not included in these spaces, deconstruction doesn't speak to us. Deconversion doesn't speak to us. Like, again, y'all, people make 15 years worth of content debunking the same damn William Lane Craig argument over and over and over again. They make the 22nd thousandth Jordan Peterson video, the 19th millionth video about Kent Hovind. Let's talk about Sean McDowell one more time. Did you know that Frank Turek cornered a college kid, a 19-year-old on a college campus, and asked him, "What do you mean by that 1,800 times?" Did you know that? But see, we would rather do that again than interview Mandisa from Black Nonbelievers. You know what I'm saying? Like, we rather do that again than sit down with Bar and be like, "Yo, Bar, what's really going on in the hood? Like, how could we really speak to black people?" The people are just not even interested in building bridges to black people in these spaces. So we get excluded from being educated about the faith, and we get excluded from deconstructing the faith. And then the third leg that hit me, y'all, is science itself. It pains me that so many black Christians are just straight up violently ignorant about science and don't even recognize how anti-science they are. But at the same time, I gotta be real about the fact that science was weaponized against black folks in incredibly racist ways. Black folks were literally the victims and often treated with less concern than the lab rats. I won't say we were the lab rats, but sometimes they treated the lab rats more humanely than they treated black folk. Then on top of that, we were historically excluded from the field. I win every day I'm on campus just because every time I walk into a fucking classroom, sorry, excuse my language. Every time I walk into a classroom as a black biology professor, I am defying expectations, blowing things out of the water, and students are just like, "What? A black man is teaching us biology? What's going on?" Right? Like, so it's crazy, but it ain't a lot of us. It ain't a lot of us. I can tell you that right now. It's like even in my field, like I know the first, just a generation ago, we had the first black people that really became evolutionary biologists. I know them. Like that's how crazy it is. It's like they're called, like we call them like the four fathers or founding fathers or something like that. Oh no, we call them the four founding soul brothers or something like that, because they joke with each other that they're soul brother number 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And I know them, and then like they're like mentoring us in the field, but that's how recent it was. It's like we know them, and they're like, oh, it's Jay and some of my other colleagues that they trying to build up to be like the next generation, and like that's it. It ain't probably 20 of us on the damn surface of the planet right now. So it's crazy when you realize, yeah, black people, when it comes to the religion and this, horrible feelings and talk about atheists and their complete mistrust of science, you realize it's bad and it's ignorant, but then you realize too, like, why is it really that way? And we realize we've been excluded on every front. They've excluded us from the academy and the higher halls of really having leadership and education about theology, about the church. We've been excluded from the whole atheist movement, and we've been historically excluded from science. So it's no wonder we're ignorant about all these things. And so I don't know what to do, in a sense, because one of the real paradoxes, I think, of faith is that believers are at once perpetrators and victims. How they got to where they're at, not really their fault. However, the things they continue to do, the things they continue to spread, their attitude really is ignorant and is not allowing us to move forward. And I think that's especially important for Black history, because one of the messages I was thinking about is, one, when it comes to Black history, we tend to celebrate the examples that make everybody comfortable. Like we people put it like we celebrate the examples of the Black leaders and civil rights leaders that made white folks comfortable, rather than the ones who really challenged people or really was on some revolutionary tip and handled things differently. We don't celebrate them as much. And a lot of times when you start talking about Black and faith, you're immediately going to get hit with, but it's such a huge part of our culture, and it was such a huge part of our struggle for freedom, and such a huge part of our journey in the civil rights movement, and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, but we're moving out of ignorance, and that's holding us back. And how long should the role that this thing played in our history be an excuse for it messing up our future? Y'all, my people can't thrive in ignorance. My people need to know that vaccines work, and they need to take them. My people need to know we were not created male and female, but rather the diversity of the human experience that we see in our community is how we evolved to be, and there's no such thing as a human that isn't natural or biological. My people need to know we were not created by some white man in the sky, but we evolved here to be the way we are, and we do share blood and genes. We are family with the living organisms around us that are also struggling for existence. We may be a little bit afraid to realize it's just us here on this planet working together to figure this out. But that ain't gonna change the fact that it's just us here on this planet working to figure things out. So while you may have made yourself comfortable with the religiosity of the people around you, it may be nice that you see the nice black family on their way to church and they all dress so nice and they speak to everybody and they're so polite and they've got good jobs and a good home and they look like it got it all together. But y'all, my people, are celebrating and struggling in ignorance, y'all. You know, I have a little quote, a little website that I never update, so please don't go look at it. But it is like a good motto for me. And that is, science is hard, ignorance is insurmountable. And I really do believe that. Science is very, very hard. I don't fault anybody for not knowing it, for not understanding it, or not studying it, because none of that is easy. But ignorance, y'all, is the one thing that we simply cannot overcome. So look, y'all, it's been fun. Sorry again for the scheduling snafu. The rest of the panel will definitely get back with y'all. They send their regards. That's on me, y'all, but we'll get it back together in a couple weeks. Thank y'all so much for coming by and for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before I get up out of here, let me make sure I handle some of this business. All right. Make sure that you support Skeptic Haven. You can become a patron by joining patreon.com/Skeptic Haven or becoming a YouTube member. Skeptic Haven is also looking for volunteers to produce booking, call screening, and if you're interested, please contact skeptichaven@gmail. All right, we've got the patrons. We want to thank Paul Camish, Karen Butcher, Puck, Helen Green, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Sonny Shell, and Phil Calderone. And the channel members are Michael Bell, Jester, Robin Webster, Derudy, Yahooligan, Manuel Puente, Karen Butcher, Ember, Al Trucker, Kelly Laughlin, John O'Neill, IQ, D Murphy, Left-Handed Jedi, Gene Spliced, and Pete himself. And don't forget to check out the other shows on Skeptic Haven. Every other Monday is the Black Freethinkers. Thursday is the Sunny Spot. Saturday is the Global Atheist and Women Atheists Unload. And the call-in show on Sunday is called Let's Talk. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all. I'm really thankful for everybody for tuning in. And again, I'm going to leave y'all with my closing thoughts, y'all. They leave us out of the hierarchy in the church. They leave us out of atheist community, and they exclude us from science. My people are wallowing in ignorance, y'all, and we need your help. I love y'all so much. I'll see you next time. Said I'm gone.